Is the Do It Poison Tail Jig Mold the most versatile jig mold that Do It's made. You can make a jig, a swim jig, a flipping jig out of it that it's really intended for, but you can also make a spinnerbait, and if you use the right hook, you can make a casting jig that'll come not only through grass, but it'll also come through wood too, so it makes it a very versatile jig. And now you can make a little tiny 1/4 ounce finesse jig out of this thing. Now I've played around with several of Do It's jig molds, and well, I think I found one that I really like. I've done the Snooty jig mold. It comes through grass really well, but it doesn't come through wood or rocks very well. The Peanut Head does really well in rocks, but it doesn't come through grass. So if you're fishing in a lake that's got a little mix of, say, some brush piles and grass and stuff, and you want one jig to do it, this Poison Tail jig mold might be your answer. So to get started, what are you going to need? Well, obviously you're going to need your jig mold. And this is the Poison Tail jig mold, and it's the 1/8, 1/4, and 3/8 ounce sizes. Now, you can also make a casting jig with the 1/2, 3/4, and 1 ounce version using the same hook that we're going to show you here in just a second. Before you get started, there's a little modification that I like to do to this mold, and it's right here. You can see where I've put this RTV silicone in it, and it's, well, it helps put a wire weed guard in there. So all I've done is I've just put some of this RTV silicone in these cavities right here, and I haven't done it in the 3/8 ounce size. I used a 1/4 mostly. But what you do is you put it on one side, and then you put it in on the other side, and you let this stuff cure overnight. And then you come back with a razor blade, and you just slice it off even there so that you can close your mold up. So for the hook, right here's the hook that I'm using. Now this is a regular wire jig hook. It's like 0.044 or something, 45 or something like that. And it's a 4/0 Mustad 32 724 nickel plated hook. And I get these things at Barlow's, and this is the 4/0 size. So for the weed guard, you're going to need some wire, and this is what I use. I use this Mylon 1x7 stainless cable. It's a 90-pound wire, and it has a 0.028 diameter in it. Now I've used a little thinner and I've used a little thicker, but this 90-pound size seems to be really good. It's got just enough stiffness that it keeps you from getting hung up, and it's also got some flexibility that it lets you set the hook on it. So for the weed guard, all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to measure out about 3 inches of wire. So what I'm going to do when I got my piece of wire off here is I'm going to bend it in two over like that. Then I'm just going to take my pliers and just kind of crimp that down, kind of like this right here, where it's doubled over like this right here. And what else I do is I'll just take my needle nose pliers and I'll grab it by the end of it like this right here, and then I'm just going to bend that over and just put a little leg in it like that right there. And that's all the gear that we're going to need. All right, we're ready to put our mold together, so let's do that. So for this, I like to use the 1/4 ounce size for this little finesse jig. Is you're just going to put your hook in there like that, and then one more piece of thing you're going to need. You're going to need a little tiny leader sleeve, and you get that with these. When you buy the spool of wire, it comes with a couple of them, or you can buy some extra ones, and I would suggest buying a few extras because that little deal right there is easy to lose. So what we're going to do with that, we're going to take that leader sleeve and we're just going to lay it over the top of our wire, kind of like that right there. So now what this does is it keeps that wire from kind of splitting apart, and it fits into the groove where the weed guard goes on the mold. And then we're just going to lay this thing in here, kind of like that right there, and then we're ready to go down to the garage and pour this thing. So when you close this thing up, just remember, you want to hear that snap on it. So did you hear that? When it closes, it's got that good snap on it. And then you kind of want to hold the thing up and look at it just to make sure you don't have any gaps or anything in it. And if you got that, you're ready to go. Now, I'll say this thing's all cool and everything. Before I start pouring, I like to heat the mold up, and I like that thing to be hot and then almost smoking, where you put the oil on the hinges and everything. When the oil starts smoking a little bit, that's when it's time to start pouring. So let's go down to the garage and pour a couple of these things up. All right, we're back up in the office from the garage. We've got this thing poured up, so let's take a look at it and see what we got here. All right, here we go. Let's open this thing up. There we go. We've got our jig here. We've still got our little collar here. Let's see if this thing will pull out of here. Oh, that'll happen a lot of times, is those little leader sleeves, you'll lose them every now and then, so just be cognizant of that. That thing might go flying off somewhere. All right, so here we go. We've got our jig. It looks pretty good here. Got a little bit of over flashing right here. So here we go. We've got it right here. I guess the next thing to do is to go paint the thing, and we'll go do that. We'll clean it up. I mean, cut and sprue off and all that. Y'all seen that before. But anyways, let's go down to the garage and paint this thing. We've got our 1/4 ounce poison tail finesse jigs here. We're going to powder paint, and we've just got some black Protect powder paint. It's in the fluid bed. We've got our heat gun, and we've got our little stand here we're going to hang them up on. So let's get to painting. Alright, if you got some paint in your eyes and you weren't able to use the little silicone caps here, so sometimes they'll get on there, and when this gets hot, they won't necessarily stick on there. But these little deals right here, these hook eye cleaners that I got from Lower Parts Online, put them in there kind of like that right there, and then work them back and forth. It will clean any paint that you have in there out before you stick that in the toaster oven to cure it. And if you cure it, it's really hard to get out. So do that before you stick it in the toaster oven and cure it. Alright, we've got our jig painted, but there's one more thing that you need to do. So these, if you use wire guards and you cut it off of a spool, these things may start to unravel on you. So what you can do is heat these things up and dip them down into your powder paint, and that'll kind of seal the ends of them up. So here we go. So all we're going to do is we're just going to heat the ends of them up just a little bit. Then we're going to take our powder paint and we're just going to stick them in there just like that right there. And just that little bit of paint on those things will help them keep them from unraveling on you. Alright, we've got our jigs in, they're cooking, and when they get done, we'll finish up this finesse jig build. Alright, fishing friends, there we go. There's our final product. Pretty good little finesse jig. Like I said, it comes through weeds, it comes through wood, so it's pretty versatile if you want one jig to kind of do it all. If you're dragging this thing on the bottom, you will have to retie quite often, because that line tie right there, it'll get frayed up some, so just keep a check on your line. But also, these hooks right here that we use, this 4/0 size, I use it in the 3/8 and the 1/2 ounce, and I also use the 5/0 version in the 3/4, and it makes a pretty good jig to go down there and fish deep brush piles and deep weeds and everything. So pick some of them up from Barlow's and try that in your Do It Poison Tail jig. Oh, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notifications, because we're going to take this head here and we're going to tie an Arctic Fox hair jig out of it. So y'all hang on. We'll catch y'all next time. We're out.